Hi, it's Ed Cohen again from San Diego. This is Global TV Talk Show. This is not a webinar. This is a conversation with really cool people representing a variety of interests. So we're going to start now with introductions. Margaret Wilson, please introduce yourself and your company and what you do.
Okay. So my name is Margaret Wilson. I am a program manager by day and a soul coach by passion, and also by day and night, and probably for the rest of my life. And what that means is I help women really go inwards, prioritize well-being, become aware of what they need, and also peel off all of the layers of expectations that were put on them and really become aware of their own authentic self.
And what's the name of your organization?
Soul Wanderlust. So Wanderlust, I'm originally from Germany, and Wanderlust means the desire to travel, and Soul Wanderlust means that you have a desire to grow.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. Al, Dennis, please intro yourself.
Al, or Alphonso. I lead the business development function at Go Culture International. It is it's the world's leading software in cultural cohesion. And about myself, I've been in the DEI arena for a couple decades, and I've had a lot of fun, but not been able to imprint like I am able to now. So
that's great. So how do you spend your days typically?
That's a really good question. I would say, to keep it simple, just engaging in every way that I can, making one connection at a time and building progress towards, it's not all about the bottom line. It's not about the green. It's about building authentic relationships. So Zoom calls, check-ins with my kiddos, and maybe a little bit of working out.
Well, cool. Okay. Yeah. Working out is important. We go for walks along the beach whenever possible. Andrew Bruzzi, thank you again for joining us. What are you going to do today after the show?
Oh gosh, challenging questions. Maybe go for a long walk on the beach. No, I'm nowhere near the beach right now, so I'll likely just keep working, and same thing we do every night, try to take over the world.
Okay. And my honored special guest, Christian Hoferle, the culture guy in Atlanta. Welcome, Christian.
Yeah, I didn't know it was the special guest. I thought we all were special, and I'm just a guest here. Well, welcome, everybody. My name's Christian, or as my mom would probably say, Christian. So, Margaret, I think there's two Germans in the room. So I'm German by passport, American by choice, Bavarian at heart. And those of you who've been to Germany know what that means. So I'm from a certain part of Germany, and we have our local regional identity. I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia, and my company is called The Culture Mastery. And we work with clients who come to us because they want their people to be more efficient when they cross cultures. So it's not the company that goes global, it's the people in those companies, and they want to be global ready. So that's what we help them accomplish.
Okay, so you teed it up. So tell us about the Bavarian culture, particularly this time of year as you get ready for Oktoberfest.
I'm not sure if there's going to be one. Have they called it off yet? I don't think so. But I see no way how they can pull off an Oktoberfest in COVID times.
They did cancel it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think this year will be the 210th anniversary. Right. Yeah. This year would be a 210th. Ain't going to happen. It'll be all right. People will get over it. There'll be more to party next year than I guess.
Well, just a bit of a side. About 10 years ago, I produced my first Germany conference in Frankfurt in association with KPMG at that time and some other people who were still around. And then we did a meeting in Berlin, and then we did a meeting, another meeting in Frankfurt. And then we also did a meeting in Munich. And we were helped at that time by Interdean, an international freight forwarder.
Yeah.
And we just had a really wonderful experience in Munich. And we went to beer hall, of course, we just really had a wonderful time. So,
well, that is often the thing that foreigners, especially from North America, are drawn to most when they come to southern Germany. They want to fill that need to have their stereotypes and expectations around Bavaria and Germany confirmed, and what better way to do this in a beer hall with lots of Oompa music and bratwurst and sauerkraut, I guess. And if you've been to Germany, then you know there's much more to that than the stereotypes. But I recognize here in the United States or North America, what people think of first when they think of Germany is the part of the country where most U.S. troops have been stationed after World War II, and that was the Southeast. And a little bit of Berlin, sure, but Brandenburg Gate, mountains, King Ludwig castles, Oktoberfest, Lederhosen, Dirndl, Oompa music, that would shape the stereotype. Germany is much more faceted than that. So I'm here to bust some myths, if that's okay.
okay, I want to get busted. So let's just say that Joanne and I were on the Rhine a couple of times. So I did one of those river cruises, and just thoroughly enjoyed the stops along the way and visiting the castles and music and more wine. So it was good. and beer. Yeah. So I'm looking at my notes here. Talking about cross culture is what we're doing here, and global mindset being, what does this mean? There's like lights going on. Okay. Global mindset and communicating effectively, particularly when you're taking a square peg and putting it into a round hole. In other words, some people just shouldn't be on an assignment because of their own upbringing, personality, or inadaptability. Al, am I saying that right? Inadaptability?
You're referring to me. I appreciate that. I believe I believe that you're saying that correct, but no, I don't disagree. I think that the most important thing is just to realize that it's not just this global and citizenship piece where everyone's got to figure out how to interact and understand each other. I think it's more just actually caring about each other. That's it, as human beings. And if we look at the next human being as a person that has the same amount of value that you do, you would truly appreciate that. And I think it's as simple as that, just caring about, the next individual as a human.
So, Christian, this is not a soft skill, right?
Well, some call it that. I refrain from that term as much as I can because the word soft, at least in our Western context, implies that it's weak and maybe negligible or not as necessary as the quote unquote hard stuff. And I'm strongly convinced that without the so-called soft skills, none of your hard skills will come to full fruition, because if you're unable to effectively and efficiently communicate with your fellow human being, wherever in the world that may be, or wherever in the world these fellow human beings that you try to work with come from, whatever their mindsets and their worldviews are, if you're unable to efficiently communicate with them, you're not going to get stuff done. You're going to get stuck in execution mode by process and by template. And as you said, Ed, round peg, square hole. That's not going to work. So whenever people come to us and say, "Oh yeah, you guys do the soft skill stuff," the hair in the back of my neck stands up, and I keep smiling, and I help them reframe it, because I think it's a business critical, bottom line relevant skill or skill set.
Margaret, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I've lived in many parts of the world, and the last 12 years I've been here in the United States. So I agree. Soft skill is probably not the right word for it, but I don't think that I think you have to become aware of whether or not you have that only by being exposed to it, right? Like, how do you know that you have that skill, whether soft or not, until you do it? And I think by the time you do it, it's likely too late. So yeah, I'm very interested in, is there Is there a way to test that? Is there a way to see whether you have that skill or not? Because it comes natural for me, but only because I've been in so many different countries and I've been around many different cultures. Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, well, okay, Christian, it's a human skill. It's not a soft skill.
Human skill is a term that I like. I like people skill. And to Margaret's question, how do you test it? That's a tricky one. I think if we're looking at this question in terms of employee mobility and in terms of people development, organizational development, I think it's pretty clear in today's organizational world that you probably won't have made it to higher levels of responsibility and competency without having a certain amount of people skills. You don't become a leader simply by technical expertise. I've coached and trained a lot of people, especially from Central Europe, especially in organizations that are very R&D and research heavy and engineering types, who these individuals thought of themselves very highly because they had all the degrees, they had all the diplomas and all the certificates to prove how great they are in their subject matter field. And they were complaining because they topped out in their companies because they weren't promoted. They were not considered for this next move, which would have included people responsibility or responsibility in helping other team members develop to higher ranks. And they were questioning their ability to move ahead in the company. They were ready to jump ship, or their employer said, "Hey, we're not sure if this person will stay with us much longer." And that's typically a clear indication that you may not have those people skills, or nobody ever gave you an opportunity to develop them. Because if you want to lead people, if you want to motivate people to do something that is the desired outcome for a group, then you need to be able to have empathy. You need to be able to relate. You need to be able to shut the hell up once in a while and listen a little bit more. That's why we have two of these and two of those and only one of this, right? And but it can be developed. It's not something that is God given. You either have it or you don't. To Alphonso's point, it is once you see the fellow human being, if you don't see yourself as the most important piece of the puzzle, if you see that we're part of something that's bigger than me, then I want to make sure that I lay myself down, I lay my puzzle piece down and allow others to connect their puzzle pieces to it in order to create that picture. But often it needs a facilitator. Often it needs somebody who is the referee or the scorekeeper or the one who creates the context in which this development can happen safely and without judgment and without finger pointing or bad feelings.
So I see on the sign behind you, masterminding. So tell us how you bring in this idea of masterminding. So does this mean you're in a group setting or just one-on-one?
Masterminding is typically in a group. So if I use mastermind in the traditional concept, the way it was hashed out by Napoleon Hill. Some of you might be familiar with Think and Grow Rich, and Napoleon Hill didn't invent it. The concept of masterminds have been around since ancient times. And I come from the Western cultural context, so when I refer to ancient, I mean the old Greeks. I'm sure that Middle Easterners would probably point to Persia, and Asians would probably point to early Chinese empires who had similar traditions. And I'm sure African cultures had their form of it. A mastermind is basically your roundtable, your your roundtable nights, or your board of what's the board of a company, basically, where you have different people with different expertises sitting around, and you exchange ideas, you give everybody an opportunity to be of value to each other. And so masterminds are typically done either completely by people from within the same group or with individuals who have nothing to do with each other professionally. So they come from different corners of the industry or from different industry altogether. And they all bring something to the table, their own unique experience, their own expertise, and everybody gets to sit in the hot seat. We call it the hot seat. So they state and ask. They have typically in our format, typically 5 minutes to explain what situation they're dealing with right now and what they're asking of the group for support. And then they shut up, and then the group goes around the table and say, okay, I know somebody I can introduce you to regarding this. So we had this issue with our organization, and this is what we did. We failed with this, but we succeeded with that. So it is this group of peers, even though they may not be peers out in the professional world, but in the mastermind room, they're peers who are of service to each other.
Well, thank you for that deep dive. So I want to ask Andrew to comment, and then go to Al to talk about DE&I and what your involvement is these days in that. So Andrew, can tech be applied to all this that Christian is talking about?
Yes, like my cheeks are actually already starting to get tired because I was smiling the entire time that he was talking. It absolutely can. And one piece that from a bit of a caveat and Christian, so your reputation definitely speaks for itself. So it's a pleasure to, virtually meet you. I know Al and Margaret a bit more, but right now I think we actually do kind of have a bit of a mastermind group on this call because Al is more zeroed into the diversity, equity, inclusion space. Obviously, Margaret's in the supporting women in finding their purpose in following what their soul draws them to. But one item that I don't want to get too far away from was when we brought up soft skills. Now, I used to have a professor that in my undergrad's in international business, that he was he was formerly I won't name the company, but a CEO of a Fortune 10 company. And he went off about how much he hates HR because, oh gosh, they always get in the way. Those are the gatekeepers. Those are like the police of the organization. Like, those are nice to have, but it does nothing for the bottom line. And I think actually, despite being in the AI space, that is completely the opposite, where a big piece of what we do with Bendium is create what we refer to as an augmented workforce, where you can help humans connect by using technology. So you support humans to focus on human things and give the robotic pieces over to the robots so they can focus on connecting more together, where I think now more than ever, something interesting that I was recently having a good conversation about is when you send an email, it's definitive, right? Like if that is the end of the statement, I made a statement and the reader is going to read it in their voice. So a lot of what you work on, Christian, is of helping people understand a bit more about themselves and the other culture. Like, hey, read it in this frame. Like take a moment to understand what the reader's saying. On Zoom calls that we're having a lot more of, then you can read body language. There's so many other tells about the individual that you're not just reading the email that previously we probably would have been doing a lot more of, where obviously we still have death by email. That's probably never, ever going to go away. But the addition of Zoom calls has been a massive support, in my opinion, at least, of how people can connect. It's obviously not as good as doing it in person, but if since it's so synonymous, everyone's used to it now, where like it's not something that you even need to schedule as far in advance. It could be, hey, I'm going to text you over a Zoom link. Let's have a call real quick. Those types of connections by using something basic of the communication software and tool, then I think that's a big support. And then obviously now in how to communicate those ideas, how to connect people in those spaces.
Thank you very much for that dive. Al, all this is normal for you. I mean, hearing all this, although every case is unique, I'm sure.
Yeah, I would not say normal, but I think this is an excellent conversation. And for 15 years, I've been in DEI and I've played and dabbled and given my all. And I have to honestly say that 15 years has been, for the most part, futile. I've not had the impact that I would have loved to have had, nor did I have the ability to do anything about it. So it was a little frustrating, but it takes collaboration as to look. Mastermind, that was an excellent demonstration of the essence of collaboration. Now I met Go Culture, and Go Culture enables, and I'm sorry, I'm biased, but I'm going to plug. Go Culture enables the ability. Well, let's first go back to where I was very just brokenhearted about my futility in my career. It was because I'd leave any meeting, any group, any session, any consulting meeting, and just it was great. All the energy was there. Everyone was excited. Everyone was jumping, and you could just feel the energy in the room. And then when you do a follow-up 6 months later, in some cases you have adverse. The effect is there's no positive impact. So that's been a very big challenge for me. And so to find Go Culture, it's just been refreshing because now there's something that is measurable, and it's measurable at the highest level of reliability, a 93% reliability factor. And for, not to use, certain talk, but from a Cronbach's alpha standpoint, that's pretty important. The industry standard is 43%. And if you're going to make any kind of decision, especially something such as important as what we're discussing, why would you not want the most reliable data? But it's a simple software that it can stand alone. It opens your mind. It helps open your or enhance your awareness by simply focusing on you, the individual, and we're all products of our respective environments. So it attacks you in a positive way, making you think, well, what's my attitude towards this? Okay, well then how is that attitude then affecting my behavior? And so it makes you think, and it's quantified in a numerical value from 1 to 100. And there's 15 of the most, it took 47 years to come up with these 15 most critical DEI competency factors. And so you get a benchmark score for everything. And so there's learning, there's reading, there's through visual, audio, and journaling, and it's simple. So it's something that changed my life in a month, opened my eyes to a number of things significantly, and it's doing that for a lot of our clients as well. So, but overall, in the DEI, I think we're all growing, and 2020 was not anticipated, but I think it's forcing us to expand our way of engaging. And that's beautiful in every way.
Let's talk about COVID impacting HR, work from home, impacting relationships. And I would think, now I've been an entrepreneur forever, just about. And it's only because never would hire me for some reason. So I just decided to go my own way. So, but COVID is impacting personal relationships with the boss, never mind other workers. And I would like to ask you guys, when you're in an office setup, you walk down the hall or whatever, meet in the lunchroom or coffee room, and you have conversations with people that ordinarily outside of work you would probably never talk with. So our corporate employees who are still employed, are they actually talking with fellow employees during this time or not? And therefore, what's happening to relationships and teamwork?
That is a fantastic question. To use Vendium as an example, so we have a small but mighty team, but we've shut down the office, and actually even you see the whiteboard behind me, that's because I'm a whiteboard freak. So everyone's relocated to my house. So just to have some face-to-face interaction in a place where we're not going to be at risk of being exposed to anything, and still to maintain that team culture. Now, that wouldn't be possible if there was a team of 100 people or 1,000 people or several 100,000 or 1 million people. That's definitely a challenge. I've also noticed that Even in, so I was away from Arkansas for a number of months in a place in Arizona, and coming back to Arkansas and saying, hey, yeah, let's go grab dinner sometime. I'm now back in the area. That's less of a thing. So let's go grab coffee. Let's go grab a drink. Places were closed. And I felt like I was going back to a new place, like somewhere that got hit by a nuclear warhead because everything's closed down. It's a ghost town. Right. And so I think that human interaction factor is absolutely important. There was and many of you know this, I used to lead the mobility team with Walmart, and obviously largest employer, you have lots of people around all the time and lots of people you don't know. So for personal and employment development, having exposures to other leaders, having exposures to other teams, being able to learn in cross-training ways, I think that's definitely important, and that should not be missed at this time. So, and Ed, a bit of a plug for you. You are a fantastic venue for this because you're bringing together thought leaders, right? We would not have met around a water cooler. We're all in our own respective places, but this is now the new form of water cooler that you, sir, have invented. So kudos to you.
Hey, I'm trying to survive. This is a way that I could just use my skills anyway, and I'm actually having more fun doing it this way. Looking back, and I was just thinking about this last night, as a matter of fact, after maybe a glass of wine too many, but I was thinking about how it used to be. I would spend so much time and effort trying to get 50 people in a room somewhere, and all the expense. And the editorial or the content was always good because of them, not me. I just put it together, but and then it goes away, not recorded, not used again. So here we have a vehicle, as I'm sure we all have discovered. Man, we better be careful because it's going to last a long time. But but also it is a fantastic library, a resource if it's used right. So back to the people who are from the office, and everyone's got a different background, religion, color, experience. Some people were C+ students and others were Dean's List, So now, what about the context? How are relationships maintained? Al, can you get into that? Christian, also, Margaret, can you talk about how you're advising people or how they're doing it anyway without advice, or maybe they're not doing it?
For me, it's just being intentional and making sure that you're reaching out to those that are really close to you, and also taking advantage of any opportunity that you have to engage with someone that can be productive. But being intentional about it and not allowing yourself to think, oh, well, woe is me, COVID is here, and I'm not going to reach out. I'm going to do my thing and I'm going to bubble. You kind of make what, you make with it what you will. And to your point, we are growing this. Just this venue right here is, it's shown, and you just spoke to the power behind it. It's recorded. It's cost effective. So I would anticipate most organizations or the entire private sector moving forward more so in this capacity. So everything, it's just a matter of looking at the positive and embracing that as opposed to looking at the negative. And so also to your question, it just, again, it goes back, I'm not preaching, but it's just care. Just care about your fellow human being. That's all. And it generally works out okay.
Yeah, Christian, please add to that.
I saw Margaret come off of mute. I want to give her an opportunity to say something first.
I can go after you. That's okay. Go ahead. Okay. No, I wanted to echo what Al said, right? Like being intentional about showing up for other people. So I think what's very important in these Zoom sessions, like I have a daughter that is doing remote learning, and she's super ecstatic about the fact that she doesn't have to turn her camera on, right? And I don't think that you can force people to turn your camera on, but I think it is very impactful to have this face-to-face interaction during a time where we can't be around each other, right? It's that human connection. And also we can all wake up and just be in our sweats and have our hair up or, do nothing. And that I think is also very dangerous to our mental health, because we have to have a purpose to get up and to do things every single day. So just to echo it, we have to be intentional, especially as leaders. We can't force people to do this, but I think being an example, turning on the camera, showing up in a certain way, and encouraging people to connect in this way that we can is very, very important.
Yeah, thank you.
Intention. I love it, because that's been the word that was on the tip of my tongue, and you all said it. I can give an example from my practice this year, which may bring this home. So we started on a larger project with a Silicon Valley-based healthcare technology provider who's got a global presence, and their IT department approached us and said, "Hey, we are expanding our IT support globally, and we decided to inbound our tech support, and we're going to do that in India." And we used to work with a third-party call center, and we learned what doesn't work. So now we know what does work. So we're building a new team of 160, 180 people in Pune, Maharashtra. And we found out that communicating with our counterparts in India is not as easy peasy as we thought it was going to be. Is that go figure? No, the no Sherlock thing. This is being recorded, but better be careful. So that was the premise, and this was pre-COVID. And we began this project in February or end of January. So I was out there in Palo Alto right when you might remember when that cruise ship was floating in the waters outside of San Francisco Bay Area. That's when I left Palo Alto. I was like, oh, this is getting serious. And what they learned over the course of these past months is that they learned how to better communicate with their Indian peers, and their Indian colleagues learned what it means to talk to an Aussie, to somebody in Budapest, Hungary, to somebody in German-speaking Switzerland, or to somebody in Atlanta or in the Silicon Valley. So that piece that was fairly easy to get them to adjust to. I mean, fairly, it's a process, but we saw quick success like we do in our work frequently. So this didn't surprise me. The progress didn't surprise me. What did surprise me was that now that they're in COVID situation, that most of the Western team members learned in order to get something done with our Indian counterparts, we need to build rapport over relationship building. We used to do this by flying to Pune twice a year and pretend that we like each other. And I said, well, this whole pretending thing isn't going to fly at all. So you'll have to make a genuine effort to be interested, not be interesting, but be interested in your peers in India. And they took that to heart, and then COVID hit, and they said, well, how are we going to do that? And the Indian colleague said, hey, now that we don't have to commute 3-4 hours every day anymore, we have time to actually set aside meetings for Zoom. We do casual Zoom meetings, and we find times on our global calendars that takes turns to include everybody. Let's get together for an hour and talk about what happened over the weekend, or what your plans are for the following weekend, what's going on at home, how the kids are doing, how the pet is doing, how your gardening efforts are doing now that you're not going to the grocery store as much anymore. You want to grow your own stuff, whatever the topic might be, right? So they became intentional about having not random water cooler talks. They didn't wait for the serendipity of meeting in the hallway. They set time aside and said, okay, now is socializing time, and drop the pen, drop the spreadsheet, put the phone on silent, and let's have a human interaction, get real with each other. So they made this part of their practice. And I have group coaching calls with them regularly, and it's like 15 to 25 people from all across the world in the same Zoom room, and they tell me how this has been working. And to see the change on their faces, there were even the most introverts who would never go on camera they decided, well, this ain't going to be fun if I'm not on camera, because they need to see me how I feel about this. So it has really cracked that bubble of protectiveness that some people have around themselves, and they open up for each other because they recognize this is bringing us together as a team. We are more effective doing it this way, because now we can't have these random tech talks in the cafeteria. Now we need to create space for this. So intentional.
So Christian, I'm excited. Is smiling an American thing, or do Indians and Germans smile also?
No, smiling is I think a universal facial expression. However, the extent to which we do it and the context in which we do it differs quite a bit. So Americans or North Americans, I always want to be clear which Americans we're talking about, because there's Americans to the south of us as well. U.S. Americans or North Americans tend to be a much more exaltive in their smiles and much more open about it. Central and Eastern Europe, not so much. So if you walk the streets in Kiev or in Moscow and you wear a big smile and you show your dental work, people will think you're nuts, right? They think life is hard enough as it is. Why would I pretend to smile at you? I don't even know you. Who are you? And stop that. They may think you are disingenuous, or that you have a hidden agenda, or you might be a con artist. So smiling depends on the context, right? But we could talk about this for hours. So just to give you.
So I want to go a little deeper here and then segue back out of it. But LinkedIn is full of smiley faces. So do all these people, let's say Eastern Europe or China or wherever, non-North American and non-Rio, maybe Sao Paulo they smile too, but definitely they smile in Rio. I know that. But so what do they think of LinkedIn and all the smiley faces?
I haven't talked to everybody on LinkedIn yet, but I'll find out. I'll give you a call. No, I think
that's a good response.
I think if you look at profiles from people who predominantly work in an environment where smiling is reserved for loved ones and private spaces, their profile picture may not be as shiny white, broad smile. I don't even remember what my profile picture is on LinkedIn, but I think the photographer really forced me to do a wide smile, because it's not in my nature either. So my resting face is more like this. So it's not really inviting to some people, right? So I had to convince myself to be a bit more engaging, I guess. But I've been learning. See, I didn't grow up like that, and maybe Margaret can confirm this, because in Germany, smiling is we do smile, but we're not as gregarious with our smiles as most people in North America are.
Yeah, Al, what do you think? And then Margaret. Yeah.
Authentically, I think that I laugh to keep from smiling. Well, I smile to keep from crying sometimes. It's you kind of have a choice. You can be happy, or you can focus on some positive, productive things, or you can focus on some things that are non-productive, and that would definitely cause you not to smile. But again, it's maybe oversimplistic, but that's the way I look at it. And I think that I don't think everyone necessarily has a choice, because it is cultural. But if we're intentional in our engagement, then we would seek first to understand and say, okay, well, I asked, I just met you and I've just flew over to this task and say, okay, well, you're not smiling very much, and I'm smiling a lot. So with all due respect, preferably in their language, their native language, with all due respect, is there anything that is different or that you would I just ask. I would seek to understand, and then they can engage, and we would potentially move forward. But if I just barged in there like a bull and anticipated that they were going to respect, me and understand me, and they're going to appreciate me because I'm who I am from where I am, then that's a whole nother story. But hopefully that answered the question a little bit.
Yeah. So, what about in Texas? Particularly Tyler, Texas. Are there smiley faces there?
That must be a trick question. I mean, everybody in Texas. Are you kidding me? And it's bigger as well because everything is supposedly bigger in Texas. I'm not in Texas at the moment, so I speak. That I think frees me to speak candidly. Texas is very proud of, and I'm proud of Texas. It's a great state. But yes, Southern hospitality, and that's it. That phrase says it all.
Oh, thank you so much, Margaret. I'm sorry to make it down the channel here. I'm sorry.
Totally okay. No, it's so funny that you said that question about Germany, and I was just watching it's not a documentary, it's like a series of this UK comedian, and he's going traveling with his father, who I think is anywhere between 80 and 90, and they came to the US, and he was so annoyed by Americans. But every time he walked into a store and they would ask him if he needed anything, if he found everything okay, or how his day was. And his personality was like, that's none of their business. Like, why are they asking me? You know what I mean? And when I saw that, I was like, oh, because it's been so long since I've visited Germany, but lived there. And I can see how some people could see like, this is disingenuous, right? Like they are taught to be this way in a customer service environment, to always smile, to always ask questions, whether you actually mean it or not. So, but I think people are so used to it over here. So I don't think they care as much. But when you're from the outside looking in, you're like, do you really care how my day was? So I think it's a fine balance of human interaction, making sure that you actually care about the other person's feelings or how their day was, or just be friendly, right? And smile a little bit or a lot of bit, whatever speaks to you. So yeah, I thought that was interesting.
Thank you, Margaret. So, Christian, you wrote a book. You put together a book recently, and looks great. It's a very provocative title. Do you want to discuss that a little bit?
I don't know if it's provocative. It's an ebook, so there's no paper copies unless you print it on your computer. It's called A Dozen Tips for Efficient Communication Across Cultures, and I compiled a few tips that I found helpful for myself. I found helpful for my clients, and I get a lot of questions from clients or potentially future clients or people who are only window shopping and peeking in and say, what do you do? And then how would you handle this situation? And I thought, well, let me just write it down so I don't have to repeat myself. And I like the outcome. It's not perfect. It's not a complete list. A dozen tips is only for marketing reasons. I could have also written 9 or 17, or in fact, there's probably way more. However, it's an ebook. It's a little hors d'oeuvre. It's a taster. So feel free to take a peek. What I liked about Alfonso's approach was this, that you ask a question, and the way you ask it is what that's where I light up. That's where I said yes, because you did not start the question with, why are you not smiling? Or why do you look, I don't know, sad, angry, mad, disappointed, fill in the blank. So whenever we ask these, if we're really interested in one another, and if we want to make a true human connection, starting the question with why usually brings up the other person's defenses, and they feel as if it was an accusation or they're doing something wrong. So you said something, I noticed that you smile a lot less and I smile a lot more. What am I supposed to make that mean? Right. So that is a great starter for a conversation. Now you're unpacking the meaning making. as humans, we make meaning. We're meaning-making machines. And what Margaret said earlier, the body language part is huge. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Albert Moravian's communication model. We make meaning, or we create meaning with three elements: the choice of words that we use, what comes out of my mouth, the tonality of my voice, so the sounds I create, whether I use a somber tone, I'm getting closer to my mic, or whether I use a high pitch, so that makes meaning, right? And then add to that my body language. So these three elements make or create meaning. Now, a lot of smiling and fast talking and jargon may be very well received in US culture because that's what we do in a corporate environment. If you're dealing with, well, let's use this example because Margaret and I are from Germany. With Germans, that doesn't always fly because to Germans, that sounds like we're in a hurry and not thinking things through and being only superficial. So the German will pause and say, well, hold up a little bit. Did I miss something? And I'm not sure if I understood that correctly. Could you give me a little more information around that? So all of a sudden we have created different meanings. So the German reads the American communication style differently. They interpret the meaning in their own lens or through their lenses. And unless we recognize our own bias in the meaning making, it'll be hard to relate to those who create or send meaning differently. So it starts with ourselves, right? Know thyself, know what your own biases are and how you can maybe suspend them for the sake of connection.
So, Christian, about your
Yeah.
radio show, this is designed to give you a pitch here, but so you're doing a lot of shows.
Pick up on that.
So tell us what you got coming up.
Well, we do a live show right now. So this is a COVID-born situation. A colleague of mine, a co-conspirator, Brett Perry, and I, he's an Aussie living here in the U.S. I'm the German in the U.S. We're about one time zone away from each other. And we said, you know what? Usually we would network at networking events and we would engage in multiple different ways. That's not possible right now. So why don't we use the resources at hand? Let's use the camera on the computer. Let's buy a $50 microphone. That's what it looks like. Oh, radio. And maybe create a little bit of artwork around it and go live every day. So we do a show called Two Chaps, Many Cultures, and the two chaps either talk amongst themselves and are silly with each other or serious, depending on the topic. And sometimes we bring on guests. And Ed, you've already been on one of our programs. So Margaret, Alphonso, Andrew, this is your invitation. I'm waiting for your calendar invite to get that done. It's typically around 20 minutes, sometimes 30. And we talk about how your respective professional field or your personal experience would add another facet to the conversation of creating effective, efficient work cultures, whether that be domestically different cultures. I mean, I think all of us live in the US. And this year, if we learned one thing this year is that there are many different cultures in the United States. If we weren't aware of it before, I think now everybody has understood. And bringing that to the table is relevant, is important for us to not only as corporations, but also as a society at large. We need to come to terms with and find ways to be better with each other. So that's basically the underlying topic of the program. Yes, very lofty goals. We want to create world peace, and we do this every weekday. So today was the 42nd episode. We've been doing it daily, and we're doing it live on YouTube and live on Facebook because LinkedIn hasn't granted us their fairy dust of going live, but it's all right. We're doing it regardless. And it's building, as you said, Ed, it's building a library, it's building content, it's building visibility, not only for ourselves, but also for the guests that we bring on. And it's the mission is to create awareness around the mission of our work.
Yeah, content is king, that's for sure.
Yep.
Okay, so we're going to bring this to a close in a few minutes. So I thank you very much for doing this. So I wanted to ask you, and this is not a political question, although it is, wouldn't it be logical for the Biden campaign to retain you, Christian, and follow up on that. When they did the roll call vote, 50 states plus, and there were so many cultures and so many people. God, it was beautiful to watch. They did a really good job, and it looked like it was not rehearsed. So,
I
what if
couldn't
they
tell you. I
want
didn't
to
watch
go?
it.
Oh, I see.
I deliberately refused to watch both conventions. I have removed myself as much as possible from the toxic news cycle, because I've learned that no matter what camp people are in, the news that cater to these camps have only one intention, and that is to make money. And they learn from the ancient Romans that divide et impera, so you divide and then you rule. That's what they're doing. They're separating our minds. They're splitting us even further apart, and I am not here for that. So I am for talking with each other and not to each other. So to give you a quick answer, no, I'm not going to be hired by any political campaign.
Well, neither am I. They don't want me. So, Andrew, I really appreciate you coming back on this. This is 7th or 8th time, and I really appreciate you. So now you're working with Go Culture in terms of technology applications.
Yeah, so I am both a happy customer, and then also we use them in our suite of services to with our clients. But yeah, so we've done certain things for them, like design them a bot and other things like that to help further the cause. Because I completely agree, Christian. Again, my cheeks are hurting from smiling so much talking with all of you today because we focus just recently. I'll use this as an example. Just recently, there's a group in Northwest Arkansas, where we're headquartered and where I live, that had you take what was referred to as a leadership pledge for specifically like cultural cohesion, human interaction, in the diversity, equity, inclusion space. And so I signed up Vendium for it. And I was expecting there to be a to-do, right? Like, we're saying we are committed to diversity, equity, inclusion. Now what? And then they put our logo on the website, and that was it. There was no money exchange. There was a pledge, which I appreciate the pledge, but I realized that there was a missed point of the action item. That there's so many things, especially in human cohesion, that's so important. Probably now more than ever. I'm sure every generation says that, but in the time of COVID, how we interact with one another is phenomenally important. So for that, my to-do that I took on with Vendium was that our team would support Go Culture and other cultural cohesion tools as much as possible. So where can we help further the cause in diversity, equity, inclusion, quite literally put our money where our mouth is to help that cause? So there's lots of times that we work together. There's people that sometimes even think that we're on the same team because I unfortunately do not have as good of a radio voice as you, Ed, or Christian, but so we recorded their demo for them and things like that to help further that cause. And I think that right now, especially in our political situation of this divisiveness, is where can we pull ourselves together? Where can we recognize that? I recently made a post of after 9/11 in the US, that was a major uniting front, that we had a common enemy that we were saying we need to go get them. United we stand, divided we fall. That was a commitment that we made against each other, and then we forgot it. And right now you have quite literally neighbors taking up arms against each other without understanding what the problem is. And this is a bit of a lowbrow way to express it, but it's almost like getting into a fight with a drunk person, where the fight becomes the fight. That you're no longer talking about your stance. You're talking about you are a jerk, and then no, you're the jerk. And so we need to spend a lot more time. And I think that in all of our platforms, realistically, we do work on that. So yeah, a bit of a jump on my soapbox there. I apologize, but to answer your question, that's why we will support in that effort for Go Culture and others to help people connect in real ways and no longer just say we want to.
Al, what do you want to say about all that?
Well, I appreciate Andrew in multiple ways, because what he said there is authentic. Coming together, partnering makes sense. So if someone wants to think that you work for Go Culture, then it doesn't matter what they think. What we're trying to do is we're trying to impact lives and change lives and save lives. So it goes back to, for me, a simple choice. We make choices every day, and that's what becomes the landscape of our future, the choices that we make each and every day. And so if you have a choice, are you going to choose? And I say this to anyone listening, and I would say this to anyone, but if you take children, and if you have children, and you keep that in mind, and you have an opportunity to either be productive and try to be intentional to understand, or you have a choice to dig in and be non-productive and do something or continue a thought pattern or a behavioral process that is going to continue to create a wider and wider divide, which, my prayers are, I've 4 children. That's my biggest concern. So I'm very authentic about that, because what do we want to leave for our kiddos? And we have the choice right now. We can actually do something positive and constructive, or attempt to, or we can not attempt to, and we can just accept what we hear as the proper, or whatever the case may be, whatever you want to call it, what we hear as truth. And yes, let's just dislike this person because someone told me to. No, it's about being authentic, and it's about caring about the next human being, because you know very, very little about them. Empathy is the key, but empathy is extremely difficult to obtain without experience.
Yeah, Margaret?
Yeah, this is an emotional topic for me because I work with a lot of women, and there's a lot of divide happening right now in the whole country, but even in the way we raise our children, right? Speaking of next generation. So to give a personal example, my son, he's 18, but at the time he was like 12, and he's always wanted to be a police officer or in the military when he was little. And then when he was 12, he was playing outside with his toy gun. And it was around the time when Tamir Rice was shot by the police because he had a toy gun, and he was 12 as well. And speaking of the news, like, you have to be very mindful about what you watch around your children, but also for your own mental well-being, right? And where is that balance? But to make a long story short, he ran in the house and he was afraid because he saw a police officer drive by, thinking that the police officer might think that he had a real gun. So he ran in the house and was afraid. So my son is a person of color. During this time right now, one of my white friends, she's a mother as well, her son is afraid of the rioters, right? And was asking, are they going to come to my house and hurt us, right? And it's like, we all have similar emotions and experiences, and we also have similar core values, but we've been told that we're very vastly different. And the only way we can come together is to have those open and honest conversations and really talk about how what we're seeing and what we're experiencing make us feel. And what's more important is that the other person on the receiving end that is listening is not going to make up a story based on their own experience, but being open about allowing the other person's experience to be the truth, right? And I think that's what we're missing right now. We're all basing it off of, well, I experienced this, so your experience can't be real. And this is where we need to come together. We really need to just allow the other person to speak their truth, and we need to accept that truth. And then we can come to a common ground and really try to solve this problem of divide.
Well, I'm really blown away by all this. This
Mic
is really
drop.
cool. Yeah.
Well, and actually, one thing I may add, just this is an oversimplification, but and I for sure cannot follow up to that, but this would just help frame it for any of the viewers that potentially in a small way. That I went to a car dealership with a friend of mine that moved here from India, and then he was looking to buy his first car in the U.S. Now, this will kind of pull together a lot of the topics that we're talking about. And when they were in negotiations for the car, he was nodding yes, but he was doing the Indian like head bobble. And so the bobble in US culture means, I don't know, you're still not there. And they kept coming back. They kept leaving and he didn't understand why they were going back because they were communicating, right? And it's because obviously I don't want to get into all the details of what happens during the communication process, but obviously you have the sender, the receiver, and everything that happens in between there. And part of that is your cultural context. So Margaret, what you're bringing up there of the frame people have in even both telling the story and receiving the story, someone's personal experiences, in which we all know this. So this is kind of an echo chamber here, but as I'm saying this, but when someone will tell the story, and if we're not open to receiving it, and we're not open to understanding that there's likely more context behind those words and that messaging than we're hearing, that somebody hearing that, like, oh, your child was afraid. Please, what are they afraid of the police for? Or they're worried about rioters. Oh, come on, they're peaceful. Like those types of things are you have the spectrum that Christian was absolutely right that they will divide us in. And how we can break down these barriers in between so we can understand and take a moment to be a bit more introspective of how am I receiving this? That obviously there's no onus of responsibility on the sender of the message, but as a receiver, what filters am I getting this message through? How do I fix those filters? And then in how do I go for feedback if there's potentially something I'm not getting? That for the example that is a funny way of talking about it with the purchasing of a car, that happens every single day in all of our communications, even with our own family members. Now, if you think of someone that is from a different culture, different background, any form of diversity that could be our next door neighbor, it could be, again, our coworkers, that we all need to be cognizant that we have those filters, aware or not, how we can focus in on and make a practice of, not just a one-time thing of, oh gosh, I saw a presentation on implicit bias and now I am a champion at this. It's recognizing that is work to work on your biases, work on your filters, and see how you can improve those models, whether or not you're moving from the United States to another country coming, trading countries or trading communications across the street.
Very eloquently put, and 3 words: authentic, empathic listening.
Yeah.
If you authentically listen with empathy, I think that it will make things so much easier, and it would bridge so much of this pretty nasty divide that we're looking at.
I want you all to come back. Let's do this mastermind thing again. Maybe a month from now or, whatever. Would love to do it. So please, Christian, think about partnering again. And it's okay to invite a few others too, but not too many. We want to keep it free flowing. So this show is over. I thank you very much for being on Global TV. I've learned a lot by just listening and being here. And my dream back in early March was to find a way to survive, but so I'm still working on it. It's a work in progress. But the dream is that we could create an environment in a talk show, give and take environment with no script, certainly some guidelines, yeah, but and let people relate. And so it's educational and networking. And so please exchange in the chat room. You can exchange messages of each other. And if you want me to be a middleman, I'm happy to do that going forward. So thank you again. And Christian, love what you're doing. And I really appreciate you. Andrew, you're a spark. And thank you. Margaret, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And Al, please come on the show again. Let's do a Go Culture show and find some others and expand that circle. And of course, Christian, you're always welcome.
Thanks for the invite. This was lovely.
Yeah.
Nice meeting you all.
Thank you.
Ciao.
Thank you. An honor.
Okay. Peace.